Hi, are you a physician thinking of moving into the pharmaceutical medicine space, but perhaps you don't have that pharmaceutical medicine background or training? One of the best ways to get further experience in this field is to get involved in clinical trials. Of course, there may be many other reasons why you would like to get involved in clinical trials, and you may be wondering how exactly to do this. This video is for you. I'm Evgenia Galinska, a dermatologist turned career expert for doctors who are thinking of moving away from direct patient care into non-clinical roles. And in this video, I would like to share with you 4 really easy ways how you can find other medics locally already involved in clinical research and clinical trials so that you can get involved in their work as well. For those of you who do wish to move away from clinical practice into the pharmaceutical medicine, let me demonstrate to you the importance of clinical research and clinical trials experience using a recent advert that I saw on LinkedIn. So one of the typical medical director ads has a requirement for a physician to have 2 years of clinical trials experience. In this case, they give you a choice of either experience in clinical development or a fellowship in infectious diseases or a clinical trials execution in infectious diseases. And this is a very typical job ad, which could be in a different therapeutic area. I hope you don't need much more convincing that it's really important to have a clinical trials experience under your belt. Before we move on to considering how to find people who can help you to get this experience, let me just explain that a clinical trial is a well-oiled machine with multiple elements and multiple people and teams involved in it. And exactly at what point you come in will differ depending on your experience that you already have. I would say that for a physician who is just starting out in clinical research, you are unlikely to have enough experience or knowledge to become the principal investigator for a clinical trial. However, you could become a sub-investigator or co-investigator. The ICH GCP guideline defines a sub-investigator as any individual member of the clinical trial team designated and supervised by the investigator at a trial site to perform critical trial-related procedures and/or making important trial-related decisions. These may not always be physicians. The principal investigator is the person delegated responsible for the leadership and the conduct of a research study at their site. They must ensure that the study is conducted in accordance with the protocol, sponsor instructions, GCP and the relevant legislation, and they must ensure the dignity, safety, rights and well-being of the study subjects during the trial. Those who are not making decisions under the study protocol, although they may be involved in the study and interact directly with the research subjects, they would not be classed as sub-investigators. So, for example, if you are a radiologist who is reporting on radiological investigations for study participants, but you're not making decisions for this trial, you cannot be classed as a sub-investigator. Typical responsibilities of a sub-investigator would include screening and recruiting of patients, obtaining informed consent for potential study subjects, confirming eligibility of study subjects, signing prescriptions, conducting clinical investigations, evaluating laboratory or other medical reports, supervising administration of a study drug, liaising with a trial sponsor, maintaining accurate accountability for all clinical supplies received by the site, observing, measuring and recording the effects of the drug under investigation, evaluating and managing and reporting all adverse effects, all adverse events, and maintaining correct study documentation. Typically, sub-investigators would be more senior healthcare professionals, not necessarily physicians, but typically they would be senior clinicians. For the junior doctors who are watching this video, I would like to reassure you that there are plenty other ways how you can get involved as well. So the very first thing that I would personally do if I was looking for medics who are currently involved in clinical research and clinical trials, I would think of former professors or supervisors or mentors that I may have had throughout my career. These could be the people you came across with and possibly did some projects or built a really good rapport during medical school or while you were junior doctors. The best way would be to reach out to these people with a little update about your career progress and perhaps compliment on their recent work. Maybe they have recently published a paper that you found interesting, and then ask for their advice about who you should be contacting to get involved in clinical trials. Of course, these people may be at a different clinical trial site compared to you, and remember that to become a sub-investigator, you need to be at the same clinical trial site, for example, a hospital or a GP practice, as the principal investigator. However, those people may well be well connected and know the principal investigators for your therapeutic area in your hospital. So it's always best to ask for a referral or an introduction, because this way those principal investigators, who are very busy people, will have less of a reason to not respond to you. The next thing I would do, I would call the switchboard of your hospital and ask to be connected to the research and development team. Most hospitals or GP practices will have a research team. Usually they're called R&D teams or research and development teams, and they will consist of clinical trial coordinators, research nurses, as well as the sub-investigators, the principal investigator, of course, and many other cross-functional professionals. By reaching out to one of those team members, you can find out who the principal investigator is for your hospital. The next thing I would do, I would try to find the relevant principal investigators using either LinkedIn or a clinical research website, which could be specific to your country, or just to use the clinicaltrials.gov website. Let me show you how to find people using these platforms right now.
So here is the clinicaltrials.gov website, and you will find pretty much any study conducted anywhere in the world on this website. Let's imagine that you are a clinician in Australia who is a pediatrician and who would like to find colleagues locally who are already involved in pediatric trials. I have selected advanced search, and here I'm going to choose a particular condition that I am interested in. Of course, you don't need to be this specific. You could just write pediatric. And the types of studies, and we'll take child. You could even choose your city to be really specific and find your clinical trial site. I'm going to avoid this for now, but I will choose the types of studies by phase, and let's search. Let's just look at this first one here. You will have a list of collaborators, sponsors, and the overall responsible party right at the top. But the most interesting part is right in the end, where they list investigators. So here you will see that Catherine North was the principal investigator for this completed study. And open the first link that comes up. She's based at this research institute. Let's see if there are contact details for her not immediately obvious. However, I can see that there's another colleague of hers whose email we can see. And actually, in the lower left bottom corner, you can see the format of the email addresses that are used at this research institute. So you would easily be able to guess Catherine's email address should you wish to then write to her. Now, let's look at her research, and let's perhaps choose Australian Genomics Health Alliance. Now, let's see how one name can lead us to some interesting other names. We're going to look at their research, clinical flagships. Let's go for the rare diseases section. Acute care genomics clinical sites. So in our scenario, we've got a pediatrician who is interested in neurofibromatosis clinical studies, and hopefully he or she is based at one of these hospitals, and then it means that he or she will be able to find the leads of clinical trials in those hospitals. The next step would be to find the contact details of these people, which can be easily done via their research institutions or on LinkedIn. Let me show you another quick search how you can find trials that are sponsored by the pharmaceutical companies, so that you can find relevant people in those pharmaceutical companies to connect with and start building professional relationships and rapport with them. Put something like allergy. And this time we are going to take industry as the sponsor. This will result in all the trials to do with allergy that are sponsored by the pharmaceutical organizations. Let's have a look at this one. At the top we will have the sponsor. Of course, this is a whole pharmaceutical company, but we need names. Often you will find the names at the bottom of the page. So in this case, it's Annelies Etter. Let's have a look on LinkedIn. She is a senior clinical project manager. Interestingly, she's based in Switzerland and the study is in Australia. It just shows how international these projects are. So what you could then do, you could write to her and say that you're really interested in getting involved in allergy studies, and you could ask her who the principal investigator is for that particular trial. The fourth way of finding principal investigators would be on LinkedIn. Let's say you are based in Australia, let's say in Canberra, who would like to get involved in clinical trials. We're going to write hematologist and then choose people. And then for locations, we are going to be really specific, because remember that if you are to be a sub-investigator, you have to be at the same site as the principal investigator. Just 3 names, and this individual seems to be a senior researcher in neonatology. It would be good for the pediatrician based at that hospital to then reach out to Abdel Latif and ask whether he is conducting any clinical trials at the moment, and if not, who else you could be speaking with. So you would write a nice message saying who you are and that you're interested in getting involved in clinical trials. Would it be possible to set up a 15-minute call or a quick meeting if you're at the same hospital anyway?
It's worth remembering that principal investigators are extremely busy people, so they may not be able to reply to you right away. So it's worth reaching out to other members of the research team, such as the research administrators or clinical trial coordinator or a research nurse, and find out about their roles and what current clinical trials they're working on, so that you're better prepared for when the opportunity to speak to the principal investigator eventually does come. In this last part of this video, I would like to explain to the more junior doctors who are watching this video what you could be doing even if you're not able to join the team as a sub-investigator. Remember that patient recruitment is fundamental for the success of any clinical trial. One of the best ways to support the research team is to be involved in recruiting as many patients on that clinical trial as possible. And there are different ways to do this. So you could discuss with the team how best you could be involved. If you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so that you're the first person to be informed when the new video tutorial or another educational material goes up. I would really appreciate any thoughts or comments. Maybe you have found some other strategies how to get involved in clinical trials. Please comment in the comments box below. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and bye for now.